Scotty, welcome to Reckoning Brothers. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm sitting here
Why
drinking.
did that make you laugh, Scotty the Hot Jew? The, the, the
I'm
hand,
pretty sure that personalized plate hasn't been taken, so I think I'm going to go with it. But no, man, I'm just sitting here drinking this. I think it's called Piggly Whistle or Pig and Whistle or something. It's a fancy whiskey. It's fantastic.
you know, Scott, today was the first Sunday NFL. It was opening Sunday in the NFL.
Mm,
Did you know that?
of course.
Sports ball. You love sports ball.
I totally knew that.
Well, of course, now, Scott, even if I know you're not an NFL fan, but of course, like, it's hot black guys in very tightly fitting clothes.
There's a few Samoans in there, let's be fair. They're linemen, but they're there.
Well, so my Bengals beat the Browns 17-16, and it was a really good game. So I just had to throw that in there. And let's see, what else was it? What else was I going to ask you about?
So Bengals versus Browns. Here's what I do know.
Yeah.
Being from Ohio. Bengals fans, okay, throughout the regional differences, Cleveland's in the north, Cincinnati's in the south. Bengals fans seem to be a little bit classier, and Cleveland Browns fans are just, I don't know, man, just alcoholics. They beat their wives. They drive Camaros.
If
There's
I
something
told
about them.
if I told you what I experienced at the one and only Cleveland Browns game I went to, you wouldn't believe me. I went in like the '80s, and that was when they had the dog pound of the mistake by the leg. The Browns were a good team. They had Bernie Kosar, the Jewish quarterback, probably a relative of yours, and they were playing the Indianapolis Colts. And Eric Dickerson, who'd come from the Rams, a very famous running back, who I'm sure you've never heard of, and
Haven't. No.
so the Cleveland Browns. So the Dog Pound is this rowdy place, and Cleveland Browns Stadium back then, I forget what it was called, was this really rowdy place where people would eat milk bones in front of you, and they would get this close to your face and bark and go, oh, 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 like that, like spit on you, and you had to pretend like to enjoy that. And Miller Genuine Drafted was a pretty brand new beer, and I watched a beer vendor get maybe 4 or 5 rows up into the Dog Pound. A guy gets out of his seat, pushes him down, grabs the beer, like literally pushes this guy down the stairs, right? Like physically assaults him, takes the beer and starts passing it around. Nobody did anything. There was one female police officer on the field for the entire Dog Pound, right? This woman, she was maybe 65, 70 years old, maybe 4'10" or something. She's a little old black lady, and she was like, you could tell, like, you would love to have dinner at her house, like, for any holiday or any night of the week. She's like this beautiful little old woman, like grandma, right? She was a Cleveland police officer. She's the only police officer there in the Dog Pound. She was at the end zone, and then because I'm not a Browns fan, because the Browns were playing the Colts, and Eric Dickerson was the star running back for the Colts, the Browns fans in the Dog Pound decided to make, and I don't know how many of them collaborated on this. Maybe it was just one guy, and and then they sent the word down the row. But they made a giant. They sewed like maybe 15 or 20 king-size bed sheets together and wrote on it in giant letters, "Suck my Dickerson." And every time the Colts would get down to the Browns end zone, they would stand up, like 30 or 40 people, standing up holding this gigantic sheet that said "Suck my Dickerson" on it, and chant "Eric, Eric, Eric." And it was a bizarre, one in a lifetime experience.
This sounds like European soccer hooligan bullshit.
It was really just hooliganism off the fucking charts. There were several fights. I had milk bones spit on me, thrown at me. I had saliva on my face. I went to the concession stand to get a hot dog or something. I probably had 40 people just walk, like complete strangers, just walk, and they just do it. They would just be walking on the concourse back and forth from a concession stand or a restroom or whatever, and just start barking in people's faces.
That lacks class. That
It
lacks a
was
lot of class right
it,
there.
it was
Yeah,
wild. It was
I don't
crazy.
go to a Browns game.
It was wild. It was crazy. But
That
yeah.
sounds
So
nuts, man.
football started today. I want to ask you what food did you eat? What did you have to eat when you were poor? That you still eat now and enjoy? Like for me, one would be like pinto beans and cornbread, or navy beans. Soup, beans, and cornbread.
I think cornbread is high on the list. Biscuits, probably. I
Yeah.
think a good biscuit is cheap as hell, and I could easily any day of the week eat a good biscuit. Yeah, corn on the cob, probably would be my number one.
Yeah.
Because corn on the cob is so easy to make. You just make corn on the cob. You use the little things or whatever your hands if you're a man. Spread it around in some butter, pour some salt on it, call it a day. Yeah, corn on the cob would be my number one.
It's very phallic, also.
It
It's
is phallic. It's like, but I don't know. If I was sucking a dick, I don't think I'd suck a dick like this. I think I'd be a man and just take it. And,
just
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's phallic, but I wouldn't suck a dick like how I eat corn on the cob.
so I asked this question for like some people said fried bologna. I never liked fried bologna.
Oh God, no, man! Stop with that shit. People are
Yeah, that was trash.
yeah, no.
I did have to eat
It's like a hot
spam.
dog.
So I named one that I still enjoy eating. Um, Cream dried beef on toast. I still enjoy eating,
Hmm.
and I make the best cream dried beef on toast. And I had it for breakfast today. And the second question is, what did you have to eat when you were poor that you wouldn't enjoy eating now?
My mother used to make salmon patties, which were salmon out of a tin can and
My mom too, and they would
awful.
and my
I
dad
would,
loved them,
oh my God,
and I will
so
never eat one
bad.
again. That's the one that you'll never eat again. Me
Yeah.
neither, ever.
Oh, dude, I'm so glad. I will drink to that. We're finally in full 100% agreement. Usually we're just like 80% agreeing on shit.
You like
But
my napkin?
yeah, it's like you're at a restaurant right now. I love it. Very
What my
classy.
my coffee filter
That's
napkin?
oh, very nice. You went to your Jack Daniels class. You had something you wanted to bring up. It was pretty heavy. I was going to be like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. I'm starting to think maybe I just want to ask you this question and see how it goes. That I brought up a little bit before we started recording.
Okay.
Do young people need to go through a commie phase?
They don't need to, and I think back in the day, I think back in because I'm old. Back in my day, a lot did, and almost entire they almost grew out of it at
Mhm.
some point. Like it was a phase, etc. The socialist thing, the communist thing, ultra left thing, right? The activist thing, protesting. In my day, they were protesting nuclear weapons. It was the nuclear freeze movement when I was in college, and then I'm obviously I was alive for the Vietnam War protests, etc. I wasn't old enough. My brother and sister were going to those. I was not, um, and so but today I think it's different. Today I think with the proliferation of social media, especially the cancerous TikTok, etc. I think and because it's so pervasive in education, especially at the college level and public education, left wing bias in academia. No, I think it's actually dangerous now.
So back in the day, 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe, it wasn't pushed so hard in like high school. So you get
No,
to college and you experience all this commie shit for the first time. So you go hardcore into it. and you go through a phase, and then you enter real life and you grow out of it. But now you're saying it's so pervasive that by the time you reach college, you're already indoctrinated, and you're just kind of getting rooted in to the ideology.
Yeah, that, and then you have politicians like Zoran Mamdani, AOC, Bernie Sanders, who are taken seriously. Right?
Mm.
Bernie Sanders wasn't taken seriously when I knew Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was laughed out of every room in Washington for decades.
Mm.
He was just this old, kooky old Marxist, former rape essayist that used to fly down and have dinner, and pal around with Central American Marxist dictators. And he got laughed out of. I say laughed out of, obviously, metaphorically. He got laughed at in every room he walked into. Bernie Sanders could go into a committee hearing up on Capitol Hill, and Democrats and Republicans both would laugh at him. Like, not openly, it was like snicker. You could see it. You could feel it in the room, right? You could walk. I probably walked into the Monocle at least a half a dozen times, or would be sitting in the Monocle, which is an iconic restaurant up on Capitol Hill. Senators eat there often. Traditional Democrats like Senator Cole, who was the founder of the Cole department stores, and a liberal, other liberal Democrats, Paul Simon from Illinois, um, um, Senator Humphrey, right? They all snickered at him because he was a Marxist kook, and everybody knew it. He got laughed at by reporters at the National Press Club, right? Like the only people in journalism, remotely affiliated with journalism, that took Bernie Sanders seriously 40 years ago or 30 years ago were like really far left, like people that wrote for The Nation, people that wrote for, like the Jacobins, etc. Nobody else took him seriously. He was a kook, and because of that, he didn't get airtime on television, right? You had congressmen like Jim Traficant and Patsy Mink from Ohio. You had members of Congress on both the right and the left, right? Hard to pigeonhole Jim Traficant, but Jim Traficant was a kooky, nutcase congressman from Youngstown, Ohio, and he was rarely on TV because he was a nut. George Hansen was was a right wing nut from Idaho, rarely on television because he was a right wing crazy dude, right? And and nowadays it's completely different. Like the media landscape now provides politicians like that with lots of airtime. And then the other thing is young people that are being influenced in education and on social media with very hardcore leftism, with hardcore progressivism, with communism, with socialism. So they are hearing politicians and other people keep telling them that we can have all these things for free, that healthcare can be free, that dental care can be free, that you shouldn't have to pay back your student loans, that they frame everything as a human right. Housing is a human right, food is a human right. They don't know civics because they weren't taught any civics. Like, and I've mentioned this before, when people talk about human rights or basic human rights, those are outlined in this country in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights. There is no such thing as a human right to what requires the work, talent, labor, resources of somebody else. That's not a human right. Those are socio-political contracts. We have socio-political contracts that provide safety net programs, et cetera, so that people that are hungry can get food via food stamps and other social programs, so they can get housing through Section 8 and state, county, municipal housing programs. But there is no human right to housing. Foundationally, my generation and your generation had a much better grasp of basic civics that you ended up sort of going back to once you realized that in the real world, nothing is free. You have to and should have to work for what you get, right? Of course, unless you're disabled. Of course, we're not talking about people who are not able-bodied or mentally capable of work and taking care of.
Can I just try to
Yeah,
recap what you said, because there's a lot of words there. So, my generation, your generation, we were taught basic civics, right? We kind of had maybe a more down to earth, grounded life because of the time we were raised in. So when we go off to college and we go through our commie phase, it's not that big of a deal because reality is going to bring us back. And the way that
yeah,
we were taught when we were younger is going to bring us back.
yeah,
Kids nowadays are so indoctrinated into it. It's their bread and butter. It's everything. They're able to stay disconnected because of the internet or whatever. They're able to stay in that world. So it's just being amplified in college. It's not a phase. It's taken them to this like next level of indoctrination. Would you say that's kind of what's happening?
yeah. That's a really smart summary of it. Yeah,
Hmm. That makes it
that's a
sound
really.
scary, man. That makes it sound scary. Not gonna lie.
And then people believe lies that don't get pushed back on. A good example of that is
A lot of people believe lies that do get pushed back on too, but your point is very well taken.
so Abby Phillip on CNN had on Zoran Mamdani, and I'm going to read you um, her question to him and his reply. You've benefited from this country. This is what your critics say, but you don't support the system, the economic system that perhaps you benefited from. Is that right? And his reply is, I love this country, and I'm also a New Yorker who has loved this city. And one of the things that I love most about this city are its parks are its parks. And the Parks Department was founded by a socialist mayor of New York, Fiorello LaGuardia, and these are all parts of the same story. And the idea to simplify it as if a critique of capitalism is un American, it speaks to a lack of understanding of the breadth of our history. Now,
So he's saying because a commie made a certain park system in New York that we should just understand that things are more complicated than
Stalin built
that.
parks. All right. So leaving aside that Hitler built parks and Stalin built parks and Castro built parks,
And
right?
Genghis
Well,
Khan did some good shit too.
well, of course, it took me like I already knew that Fiorello LaGuardia was, uh, you know, was a member of the Republican Party and was elected. He flirted with socialism early on, but he was a member of the Republican Party. He was a Republican mayor of New York. That's just a fact. Yes, he was, and in those days considered, a progressive Republican, a liberal Republican, a Teddy Roosevelt Republican that believed in, social programs and parks and recreation. But it's factually incorrect. His answer is incorrect. The Parks Department wasn't founded by Fiorello LaGuardia. It was founded in 1870, 12 years before LaGuardia was born. LaGuardia wasn't a socialist. He was a Republican mayor. And we're talking about a millionaire Nepo baby
Hmm.
communist, all right? And of course, the journalist just sat there and nodded right along with it. She doesn't know that Fiorello LaGuardia was a Republican, and she obviously doesn't know that he didn't found the Park Service in New York City. So when you can say things that are factually incorrect and then adorn it with things like, and yeah, parks are great, and we have to get beyond blah, just to go over it again. Well, I'm also a New Yorker who loves this city, and one of the things I love most about this city are its parks. Well, that doesn't address like your worldview on economics,
Yeah, that's
or your
another
it
foolish.
doesn't it doesn't address your critique of capitalism. It doesn't explain why you call yourself a democratic socialist, but you endorse, like he's endorsed communists, got chosen or elected or became, you know, ascended to office. Like one of his tweets a while back was, some woman communist got to be mayor of city, and he goes, "This is what New York needs."
Has Mom Donnie ever allowed himself to be interviewed by somebody who's kind of adversarial?
No, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's
No,
unfortunate.
it's not. That's not going to happen. Now, the other story you were going to ask me about was a story that you hadn't heard of, and the reason why you haven't heard of it is very simple. It's being ignored by the press. There was a man who has been arrested 14 times, armed robbery, assault, etc. We're talking about a 14-time loser. He was in prison for 5 years, and right after he got out of prison, he assaulted his own sister. Apparently, he's schizophrenic also, so he's a fucking wacko, career criminal. 14 arrests just going back to 2011. And a Ukrainian girl was sitting on the train in front of him in North Carolina, and he pulled a knife out and stabbed her and killed her. And as far as I can tell, there's zero stories on the AP, zero stories from PBS, zero New York Times stories, zero NPR stories, zero Wall Street Journal stories, zero BBC stories, zero CNN stories, zero Washington Post stories. The mainstream press has ignored it. They ignored it because it doesn't fit the narrative. Like Jesse Smollett's hoax thing in Chicago got saturation coverage for weeks.
Yeah.
This gets no coverage. And
The news is a narrative reporting machine. We talked about this last time. That's what they do. That's what they do. If it doesn't fit into these narrow things that they think is part of their message slash what their viewers want to see or hear, they're not going to.
unless Wikipedia has changed something, this is all it had as of a day and a half ago. Killing of Irania Zurotutska. The killing of Irania Zurotutska occurred August 22nd at the East-West Boulevard. That's all it's got.
That's all it's got.
Right? To do a side-by-side, George Floyd on an AP news search has 74,221 results for George Floyd. There are zero results for Irania Zurotutska.
Start a Say Her Name campaign. Say her name.
Yeah. So,
So
go ahead.
let me just. So the story is a total whack job. In and out of jail, 14 arrests since 2011. Schizophrenic. Stabs for what reason? This Ukrainian woman. It's just because he lost his shit and he's a psycho.
Like it's on video. They're showing video of it. It's all on video, right? He's just sitting there. He pulls out a pocket knife and fucking stabs her in the neck, and then gets up and very casually walks off the train.
Oh man,
right?
This is the kind of
So,
shit that happens.
I mean, Daniel Penny killed the crazy person on the train, and it was saturation coverage for weeks on end. 24/7 coverage on every network. I don't even want to Google the results for it, right? So
Are you telling me the media is a propaganda machine? No,
media is a propaganda machine.
I refuse to believe it.
The left finally found a reason not to talk about a Ukrainian getting murdered.
That's true. That's their hobby horse. Ukraine, right?
Right? Like Democrats on the left
Ukraine's
finally
fucked.
found a reason to spike a story about a Ukrainian getting killed, and that's one that gets murdered on a train by a fucking psycho, fucking career criminal, and it's because of his skin color. And of course, nobody is saying nobody. I'm not saying it needs to be a bigger news story than anything else because he's black. I'm not saying anything remotely. Nobody is saying anything remotely like that. We're saying that narratives are pushed in the press constantly, and stories get spiked on purpose. Omitting stories from the public view also is part of a narrative. Omission is part of a narrative. You are an extremely well-read person, you're up on current events, daily current events. You may not be as big of a news hound as I am, but you didn't even know that this fucking story happened.
I never heard of it. We had it figured out. The goal was color blindness. It's a goal. We're never going to reach it. It's just a goal, right?
Yeah.
It's a guiding light that people should be judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. Some dude said that, right? It's Martin Luther King.
Yeah, the greatest civil rights
We had
movement
it figured
in the
out.
world.
It's so obvious that what an individual does matters more than what a racist thinks about them. Because judging somebody by the color of their skin says what a racist thinks about you is what matters. That's essentially what it boils down to, and it's so fucking stupid. I'm sick of it.
I'm so weary of it. It makes me deeply, deeply sad and deeply concerned for the future of this country, because the tribalism is so bad now. Online, in real life, it's not like 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 everybody goes through their days and they get along with everybody and etc. And then you read about, it's a big country, there's 340 million people here, so bad things happen, and you read about shootings or killings or what have you.
Well, you say that online is different from real life, yes. But I think as we go on, online is going to start bleeding more and more into real life, and it's going to become more and more a part of real life.
It does.
So it's kind of scary. And you see little bits of it here and there where people are like, it's like sometimes you see internet people in real life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's weird when it happens, but it seems to happen more and more. And you're like, oh, that's like an internet person. That's like a Twitter person or a Blue Sky person being brought to life with the things that they're saying. I'm seeing them in front of me in real life, and it's weird. I think as time goes on, that'll become more prominent, and it's fucking scary. I don't want to talk to internet people. I want to talk to real people. Fuck internet people. And I say that as someone on the internet right now, and I don't give a shit.
Yeah. It's deeply disturbing. It really is what the internet and social media have done to tribalize everybody. Like, you know, and not judging people, judging people collectively instead of judging people individually. I hate it.
It's a sin. It's a fucking sin to judge people collectively. And how do people not realize this? Just put yourself in the shoes of a person who is being judged because of the color of their skin, right? They have nothing to do with the people around them other than the fact that they have the same color in their skin. And you're putting judgment on that person. You're saying that person needs to be punished because of it. It doesn't matter black, white, Chinese. It doesn't fucking matter. The point is you're judging somebody, you're putting them in a group, and you're saying that individual needs to suffer because of this group. Not this individual needs to suffer because of this individual's actions. You're right when you talk about young people being indoctrinated into a different worldview than we had. And I think the number one most negative part of that worldview is what you just said. Judge somebody by the group that they're in. It's a fucking sin. Fucking.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to go. I gotta get out of here soon. Do you want to put a final bow? Is there a bow you want to put on this?
I can't think of anything. I miss Josh, and so hopefully he'll be here next weekend.
If I were a gay man, I would pleasure Josh with my mouth.
Woo! Scott, I don't even know what to say to that.
I know what Josh would say. Thank you. Man, I love talking to you, man. We'll hit
until next week. I love you, bro. Take care.